Okay, so we are live. Sorry for the somewhat late start. We're having a few technical difficulties, and we may have one or two members of the board join us a little bit late, but we're trying to get everybody on. But we have enough people to start, so we'll get going. And the first thing we'll do is I'll propose that we approve the minutes of last month, September 21st. They've been distributed and everybody's had a good look at them and they seem good to me. So I will make a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay. So the minutes are approved and we will go to our new matter, which is Darren Klein, 11 Hancock Place. Sarah, is there somebody on Hancock Place for us? Okay.
Yes, there is.
Oh, there we go. Hello. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I am here. My name is Lizette Elias. I'm here from Christina Griffin's office, and I'm here representing our clients, Darren and Sukina Klein. We are proposing, can I share my screen? Yep, okay.
Sure.
So we are proposing 2 new air condenser units to the left-hand side. There's an existing unit on the upper left corner here. And these new units will eliminate 2 units from the far right corner and will not be moved to this side of the house. The units are bigger, they're more efficient, and unfortunately they don't fit where the existing 2 units were. And the assumption was that we were within the setback, and unfortunately we're not. The existing side yard setback is 25 foot 3 inches, and we're proposing 21 foot setback from the side yard setback. It is an ideal location for these units. It's very quiet. There's a lot of plantings here, and it's private. It can't be seen from the front. It can't be seen from the neighbors. It can't even be seen from the backyard. So all around, we felt like this would be the ideal location for these units.
And what's on the other side of that property line there?
Here, this is the neighbor's property.
Okay.
But I can show you, exactly what that
That'd be great.
looks like. So this is the corner edge here of where the existing unit is, and this is looking to the backyard.
Oh, hello, Rosie. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I do not know what the problem was, but I'm on now.
Who knows? So this is just our first matter, and can you just show us again the map? Just show Rosemary what we're looking at here. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So this is the home, and to the left-hand side. So it's a flag lot. The lot does open up in the back, but after it clears the house.
Okay. Yep.
So there's an existing metal gate here that links to the sun porch. And then, there's a lot of greenery along the side fence here, et cetera, and on the back.
Gotcha.
So this is an existing unit, and these are the 2 new units here.
Okay.
Right next to it.
And you said there's units that are being taken out?
That's right. So I was in front of you several months ago when we were proposing some renovations to the rear. The scope of work has changed slightly, and we can't eliminate all the units, but we can remove 2 units, but 3 units on the back here would still remain. So these are the 2 that are being eliminated. The new units, as you can see, are larger, and they don't fit here.
Got it.
Unfortunately, so we had to move them over here. And since there was already an existing unit there, we felt that this was the best location for them.
They are right outside of the required setback.
Right.
Right,
Yes, they
okay.
are.
Does the existing unit on the left side require a variance, or is that already received one, or somehow with grandfathered or something?
That was grandfathered in. This was here. This is the existing unit you're looking at here. And you can see the sunroom is raised, that sun porch is raised, so it clears the unit.
Okay, and did you have another picture for us to look at about sort of like where the yard is? And yep, gotcha.
So this is the yard, this is the backyard, and then there's greenery all along the side here in the back. So you can't see it from the back, you can't see it from the side, and you can't even see it from the front. There's a gate and there's greenery all around. And it's very
And what
quiet.
about noise?
So they are fairly quiet. They are 74.3 and 74.6 dBA,
Okay,
which is between a normal conversation and an average radio sound. So they're not loud at all.
and I'm assuming the neighbors have all been noticed on this.
Yes, I have my proof of mailing.
Got
They
it,
have been.
good. And no comments from the neighbors as far as we know. Sarah, is there anybody else who'd like to be heard on this? Are there any neighbors or anybody who is interested in speaking on this?
There's nobody raising their hand to speak, and there are no comments in the chat.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? No?
I guess my only question is, did you look at any alternative sites? I mean, this is a huge lot. Why are the units being put into one place where they create a problem?
So we did. There is an existing pergola. So right here, this was where it's an ideal location. But the basement is in fact a walkout basement, and there's an existing pergola and patio here. And so they would actually block the doors in the basement if we placed them here. Same on the other side. So in the basement, there's doors all along the side of the house here, and it's a patio that you walk out. So there really wasn't an ideal location unless we put them way back here, but we would have to cut into the grade significantly, and then you can see them from the patio above and from the yard. So we felt like this location was still the best location and closest to the house for the actual, work being done. And we didn't have to rip up a patio and increase the scope of work beyond what we wanted to do and what the client could do.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
Oh,
Comments?
the homeowner would like to speak.
Great.
I don't know if you can hear or see me.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Darren Klein. I'm the homeowner, and thank you, Lizette. The only thing I would add is just the reason they don't fit where the old units were is because we wanted to move from a 13 SEER to a 16 SEER, which is a lot more energy efficient and also quiet. But because the coils were out more to get to the 16 SEER, the units have to be bigger, even though they're more efficient and quieter. That's the only reason why we had to find a new location for them.
Thank you. All right, if nobody has any more questions, or comments, I'll make a motion. I actually did get a chance to walk by the property, and I did see what you're talking about. They're pretty hidden where they are, and they're pretty far away from the next home. It's a pretty minor ask. It's only a setback. It's not coverage. It's not anything else. I think it's a pretty minor request, and I'm willing to go along with it. So I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second,
Great. So we'll do from top to bottom on my screen. Charlie,
Aye.
Ken,
yes.
Rosie,
Yes.
Okay, excellent. You are approved and you will get your letter this week.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank
Thanks.
you. All right, so that's our only new matter. So now we have a continued matter from last month, Searle and Rudenstein, 8 Palliser Road. Is there somebody from that case before us tonight, Sarah?
Yes, there is.
Super. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good.
You can see me and you can hear me.
Yes.
All right. Good evening again. We are returning for the second time in the matter of the deck at 8 Palliser Road being proposed to become larger. We have submitted a detailed and a lengthy response, and I am going to assume that everybody had an opportunity to read a letter which we submitted. I'm going to go over it just really quickly, and if if there are any questions on any particular issues, I would take questions, but I would like to get to the technical part. But before I do, just wanted to say that the homeowners and myself, and the homeowners are on the call and could also answer questions, have gone into some lengths to explain why it is very important to them that they do actually have an opportunity to make their deck a little larger, because they have an extended family that spends a lot of time with them, and that's why they are really trying to make the deck bigger. Also, they wanted to tell the board that they absolutely are in favor of the board sort of reviewing things very carefully and just keeping up the quality of the environment, because they just moved into Irvington, and they certainly feel that the role of the board as a keeper of sort of great standards for everybody's living environment is very important. So everybody is happy to discuss and sort of see where we can land, so everybody is comfortable. So we wanted to address the board's concern about the coverage, and we were trying to find a way to make the coverage lower. We started by looking at the existing coverage, which basically consists again of retaining walls and walkways on the property. And retaining walls is something that cannot be obviously easily removed. There is a lot of steep slope on the property. And so we looked at the existing walkways to see if something could be done. And in a nutshell, the house has a front door and a back door. And the front door leads to the foyer, the back door leads to the kitchen, and they are both leading from the parking lot in a straight line to these two doors, and they are both used for different reasons, which we described in the letter. And I included some new photographs. So here you can see the front walkway, and here you can see the back walkway. They are each a straight line, 3 feet wide, and there's just no way to either make them go away or make them have less coverage. We considered putting gravel in place of bluestone, but as gravel counts for the same coverage as bluestone, that wouldn't really actually help us. So because of that, we turned to the task of making the deck smaller. Here's the existing deck, and I actually am including two site plans. The first one on A002, you can see the one that we presented in September and is now superseded. And click, as you can see on the next page, you can see the revised site plan from October. So as you can see, we sort of took a bite out of this deck and made it smaller. before it was 308 square feet, and now it's 200 and I'll come back to the number. So now it's 227 square feet. So we sort of looked at the numbers, and I have to say I'm very glad that we have a chance to sort of be back and discuss the issue again, because following the last meeting, I almost was wondering, are we truly doing something utterly unreasonable in proposing this deck to be enlarged? So we created this data analysis, and as you can see, we're showing the existing conditions in blue, the proposed, which we had in September, in red, and the revised conditions in green, which are in October. So when you look at the deck itself, you will see that previously we were proposing 308 square feet in addition to the existing, which was, and we were increasing the coverage by 1.3%. Now we're proposing only 227 square feet, or a quarter less than before. And so the added coverage is only less than 1%, 0.9%. We also did the neighborhood analysis, which is very helpful. And obviously the numbers provide an opportunity to do a rational sort of science-based analysis of the neighborhood. And so you can see that looking at the coverage, we have about 12 properties in the area, which are the affected properties. And in the existing conditions, which are in blue, the lot coverage, which this house has with the existing deck, is there are 3 properties that have a lower coverage, and there are 9 properties that have a higher coverage than what we have. If we go to the proposed in September, there are 4 houses which have lower coverage, and there is 8 houses that have higher coverage. So by backing up the size of the deck, we brought it to the point that you see in green in revised, where we again have 3 properties that are lower coverage, lot coverage than we are, and 9 properties that have higher coverage. I also went to, since, once you're in there and you're collecting all this data, I also went to look at sort of just a general situation about the outdoor space that the different properties have, which is either a deck or a patio or a pool, like any outdoor recreation area that is recorded. And if we're looking at the existing 8 Palliser, there is 4 of them which are smaller, and then there's a whole bunch of them that have larger outdoor structures that we're proposing. Here is where we were in September, which is pretty much average, and now we have moved down a little because we have a smaller deck, so somebody else has a slightly bigger deck than that. So this really became very reassuring, and sort of telling us that perhaps the coverage that this property has is not quite as excessive as it may appear originally. And so and there's another interesting thing which is happening, that this property is in 1F40 zone, which has a required lot coverage of 12%, and immediately next to it is a 1F20 zone, which has an allowed coverage of 16%. In other words, 4% more. So if we look just right next to the neighbors, we would actually be able to do the original proposal or the revised small proposal without any zoning variance at all. At which point it almost feels like sometimes, these numbers might be even slightly arbitrary, because if we can have only 12% here, but somebody else has 16% here, and it's all a very consistent type of neighborhood, perhaps, it's not quite crucial what exactly that number is. I also would like to say that, sort of going down that path, we looked at additional properties, which are sort of on Castle, Palliser, and Leafwood, and just pulled in more information. And that also told us that there is a whole number of other properties that have a higher coverage and that have larger outdoor structures. The last very important thing I'd like to say is that the homeowners reached out to the neighbors, and had conversation with them about the original proposal and the sort of the reduced size of the deck. And they, explained what was happening, and all of the neighbors were actually in support of this deck enlargement in either version. And they really sort of were not thinking that this would affect their own properties or their own lifestyle in any way, because the deck is in the rear, and it really doesn't bother any other neighbors by sort of being this or that. I have a schematic here which I would like to show, which is saying that here is the deck which we came with last time, which sort of went to the face of the outcropping. And here is the deck which we made smaller. And I think there was some confusion about what exactly these areas meant and how they were going to be used. And so this furniture layout shows you that we have a barbecue and a table here. And then we're trying to use the rest of the space for a seating and a lounging area. And as you can see, this one gets to be usable, even though perhaps slightly more cramped. And this one is the one that is a little more generous. So I am going to show you this rendering here. And so in addition to seeing this front and back walkway, we actually try to simulate what is happening here and show that really what we're trying to do in enlarging this deck is to fill this space, which is not really that large. It's just space that could have some chairs, table, lounge seat. And that's the space that we're trying to capture, because it is not very useful. There's not much really that happens in that space. And if we were able to keep the original footprint, we would go sort of all the way to the rock, and just like connect with the rock face and just have this nice clean area. If we're trying to lower the coverage, then what we're doing is we're here's a rendering that shows that as well. What happens is then, we basically leave some of this space again unused, just as unused as it is now, and presumably we would fill in with some landscaping. So which would be certain kind of enhancement, but at the same time it just seems to be a just maybe a little bit of an unnecessary complication, like, what exactly is going to happen there, and like, are kids going to lose their toys when they fall there, etc. So long story short, trying to comply with the direction that we were given last time, we have this smaller proposal in front of you, and we would hope for your approval, while we're still regretting that, looking at those numbers, the original proposal really doesn't seem that much worse by comparison, and doesn't seem to be objected by anybody. And if by any chance you would like to go looking at it differently than last time and sort of just say that it's just as fine, then we would be happy to take that as well. And that's about it.
Sorry. Frankly, I think the reason why you're not finding that much of a difference between the two proposals is there's not that much of a difference between the two proposals. I'm a little surprised you came back with something not a little more scaled back. That's my initial proposal. I don't, if you have a problem with the zoning, that's something to take up with the trustees, not us. We don't make the zoning. We make decisions on whether or not there should be variances on the zoning. But, I'm very familiar with this neighborhood, and frankly, the IF 20 and the IF 40 are two different neighborhoods. I assume that's why they're zoned differently. So I'm not overly persuaded by that, nor am I overly persuaded by adding those numbers into comparables, because they're two different neighborhoods, zoned differently. But I would like to hear what other people are thinking.
So Sarah, first of all, I don't believe I've got the letter that Eva is referring to. I don't know if I'm the only one.
I didn't actually see that letter either, but yeah, I didn't see that letter either. I don't know if you and I just missed it, or but I didn't see it, no.
Well,
No,
it is a
I was
five.
able to, yeah, it was in the portal, or at least it was
Right, I
earlier
might have just
today,
missed it. Yeah, it's easy. It would.
or it might have been uploaded, yeah. after we
Right,
looked.
it might have been uploaded after I looked, or I don't know.
Yeah, it is a 5-page letter, which we submitted along with the signatures of the neighbors at the same time as the drawings. It was on the same flash drive. So I assumed it was distributed at the same time.
Yeah, must have been. I must have missed it. But I mean, you're sort of making your case, I think, more or less in what is in the letter.
Yes.
Are there any other thoughts? Anybody else have a thought on this?
I kind of agree with you, Sarah. It's not much of a change. And I'm really kind of unpersuaded that there's anything about making the deck that's compelling,
Yeah. me
right?
too.
Like it's a deck.
Anybody else have any comments?
Well, I'm wondering if there's any map we can take a look at to just show which comparables were selected and where those are located
Yes.
relative to the house.
So the comparables were selected as the 200 feet, as the properties which you can find in the 200 feet radius, which are the properties which are labeled affected by the Irvington zoning code. And you can see them on the cover page of the drawings. And so everything that you see here in green are those properties on the list, the properties that were noticed and that are considered adjacent. The additional properties we sort of included just on the side were basically properties that you see if you go down the street and look across, or if you go here and look across. But that is really just a small part of it. The main portion are the properties which are the 200 feet distance affected properties, which we're required to look at and notice.
Right, but adjacent and comparable don't mean the same thing. And I totally agree with Sarah that you can't compare one F20 and one F40.
Right.
I totally agree with that.
Yes, well, we are, looking at the properties that we're required to look at because they are within 200 feet. They happen to, as you can see, they happen to fall into two different zones, but regardless of that, they are within the 200 feet radius. And here you can
but the
see
200 feet radius is simply for notification. Like if there was a commercial building within 200 feet, you wouldn't include that in a comparable. If there was a park within 200 feet, you wouldn't include that. You're confusing adjacency and comparability.
Well, I'm trying to look at the houses that are in the immediate vicinity. So what would be your suggestion at what is it that we should be looking at?
The ones that are zoned the same.
The ones that are zoned the same. Okay. So for example, if I take out these 4 properties and I only look at the ones that are in IF20, in other words, they are in IF40. So those are the ones that have the 12% coverage. So we can see that there is 2 houses that have lower coverage than this property. And then there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses that have higher coverage than this property.
Not true. So 1, 2, 3 houses I'm looking at right now. Wait, yeah, 1, 2, 3. Could you make that go back actually, because it was giving me the addresses. And
Okay.
The addresses, yeah.
Yes. All right. I'll move it over.
Yeah. So
Right there.
1, 2, 3.
So the first one we won't count because that's oh, that's an oversized lot. It's in IF 40, but it has
1, 2, 3,
over,
4. So 4, that one's excluded. So there's 4 under. 1, 2. Let me see, this is hard to do. Yeah, there's a couple that are over, there's 4 that are under. But I mean, I think the one thing that we were trying to convey to you last time that I think you're not, at least in your comments, taking into consideration is that this was a property that was purchased with significantly over on coverage. And now you want to create, increase it significantly more than that. And that's one of our problems. And I think there was some openness to expanding the deck, but nowhere near to the extent that you had extended it. And I don't think there was a significant change.
well, again, we have made that expansion smaller by a quarter, and we are expanding the coverage by less than 1%. And so it really, and the reason we have this comparison is to say that we have, if we're counting these carefully, we have 3 properties that have lower coverage, and we have 4 or 5 properties that have higher coverage, and we're barely moving. Like if we look at a deck that we have revised to be smaller, we actually haven't moved, and we haven't become, the coverage hasn't become larger than any of the properties that we are already larger than. So and if we went to the original proposal, then there's only one other property that then has a lower coverage. But going from the existing to proposed today, the coverage hasn't increased beyond what it is right now. It's still, there's the same number of properties that are small that have smaller coverage, and the same number of properties, which is a majority, that have a higher coverage. And there is a point where you sort of have to ask if if you expand the deck just a really tiny bit, how much is it worth at that point? Again, it's let me go back to these numbers. The increase in coverage is actually, what I would prefer to do is go back to this slide. Okay, we actually addressed this fact that you're saying that people have purchased that house, recently, and that they are now trying to increase the coverage. Obviously, their intent is not to increase the coverage. Their intent is to have a place where they can have grandparents, cousins, brothers, sisters, and friends to hang out. They didn't set out to increase the coverage. They just want to have a place where they can have a dozen people hang out comfortably. And
our whole purpose is to determine when it's appropriate to give variances.
Yes.
Coverage,
yes.
and it's not because we want it. I mean, everybody
Yes.
wants it.
Yeah.
Everybody in this town wants to do things with their house that
Yeah.
we have to make decisions based on that.
Absolutely.
But I've got to
Absolutely.
say, by the way, I'm reading your charts. There are 5 houses under the coverage that you're looking for. There are a few over. I don't know what the circumstances of those are, but
Yes.
I don't know. I'm a little surprised that you came back, given, I think, the pretty clear feeling on the board last time, but you did take some off, and we can put it to a vote. Is there anybody else who wants to weigh in or has an opinion? By the way, hello, Judd. Thank you for joining us.
Sorry. I mean, my view is, I understand the coverage and, making the case, but I guess my view is that where we're expanding this coverage, it also just seems to be, just close to that rock, and it just kind of isolates the yard, and it just seems like a big platform, right for that location. So that I I guess with allowing the coverage increase to where it's actually located, I'm having it just I just can't get I just can't get comfortable with it.
It's a huge part of that yard. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
That's where, you know, that's how that's the issue that I'm having with allowing the increase of the coverage there.
Rosie, anything, Ken? Do you guys have any comments?
No, I think my questions have been more or less addressed.
What about you, Ken? Anything or?
I mean, I appreciate the effort that the homeowners made to make some modifications, but I agree with the sentiment. I think it was the board, you know, expressed some serious discomfort a month ago. And, you know, I'm also surprised that it's a very small reduction from what it was. And it moves the needle a little bit for me. And I appreciate the, you know, comparisons, but I don't think it moves it enough for me.
Can I say a couple of quick things?
Yep.
Okay. One, I just would like to say that when you think of this deck as a platform, the deck right now has a railing, which is not terribly functional because the deck has been built very close to the ground. So it is a kind of a platform. And all that the railing does at this point is sort of makes it feel even smaller and make the people feel like they are sort of trapped in that area without being able to get close to that rag, which is beautiful, and they would like to be able to get to it and touch it and enjoy it and just have it as a sort of an organic backdrop to their activities. And secondly, there is a part of the yard which is usable, and then the other part of the yard here is really a utility side of the house. There is the propane tank, there's the air condition, and it really is not used for recreation. So this deck being sort of a transition zone or a separation between the two makes some sense. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to also just have the homeowner have a chance to say a few words, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So if you'd like to do that, Sasha, that would be great. Just raise that hand button, please. Sarah, if you could admit her.
Or they did. So.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Hi, am I
Yep, we can
being
hear
heard
you.
now? Great. Can you see me? It's so strange to talk into a void. Okay, Sarah, I see you. So first of all, thank you all very much for the conversation. We are new to Irvington and have simply loved our first few months, and our kids are thrilled and making friends. And after the last couple of years of a lot of transition and displacement, it just feels so good. So I just want to just acknowledge how happy we are to be here, and thank you all for your consideration. You know, I think there's a lot of pieces to the conversation that are new to me. I'm new to owning a home. I'm new to variances and zonings and this and that. So please forgive my naivety. And that obviously has affected the fact that maybe I was not the most informed buyer, and that I didn't even know that there was such a thing as zoning and things like that coming in. And for that, I regret, and I've learned my lesson. I think there's a few pieces that I've been hearing that I thought I would just speak to on a personal level. The first is that in our mind, actually, our experience on the deck is it's incredibly integrated into the backyard. As you see, my kids' soccer goals are back there, play outside all the time. We've spent the last 2 years living in rural Connecticut and have become immersed in nature. And so we actually spend the vast majority of our time outdoors, eating outside and playing outside. So for us, the idea of being on the deck and being in the yard is being in one place together and enjoying that space. I can very much appreciate that it feels that the deck is coming too close, sort of crowding this rock, which is actually one of the things I fell in love with in terms of the property when we first looked at it, and my kids adore. And in many respects, I think actually approaching the rock does make it feel more touchable, feel much more connected to our day-to-day experience. Right now, the space between the deck and the rock is actually narrow enough that the kids can't play there and don't play there. And we want to make it more usable and usable in a way that we could enjoy day in, day out together. So I think that that's part of the motivation for requesting this extension. The other piece that surprised my family is that my brother had twins suddenly after we all thought he was done with children. And so when his family comes over, which is almost on a weekly basis, as my kids, there was a pack of 4 kids and now there's a pack of 6, we can't fit at the table. And so for us to not be able to have a meal together as a family has actually been upsetting, and we would really like to create a space that allows us to do that, and then also allows us, when my sister-in-law is nursing or with the babies, to sit near us on a couch. And that's the other big motivation, just to create this outdoor living space that actually accommodates the family that we didn't expect we'd suddenly have. And then I guess the only other piece, because I don't want to harp on details that have already been spoken to, again, this is just my personal take on it, is we've gotten to know our neighbors quite a bit. It's the most beautiful neighborhood and community, and our kids play together constantly. I walk my dog with my neighbors and we get to chat. And the support that we have felt just as newcomers to this neighborhood in the context of COVID has been overwhelming. And in that vein, we made it a purpose to actually go knock on everybody's door and to discuss with them this plan, because the last thing we want is to actually become a burden to the neighborhood and our neighbors, where we've had such a warm relationship so far. And we've been really surprised by how welcoming and supportive of this plan, as per sort of the letter that they all agreed to sign willingly, and even would be happy to kind of participate in any other way. So we feel confident in terms of our neighborhood relationships and the quality of life of us and our neighbors, that this is not impeding and actually just improving our quality of life. And I very much appreciate the importance of zoning in maintaining the neighborhoods and the town. And I don't want to request something that's unreasonable by standards. That's the last thing on my agenda. I am just requesting that there's some, I guess that's the background for this request. I guess that if you could see my face, you would see my affect. So I hope that provides a little bit of our personal experience. And again, I've learned a ton listening to the meeting, and I appreciate all of your thoughtfulness and how carefully you evaluate these various proposals. So thank you for the consideration. It means a lot to us.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm glad you're having a good experience in Irvington. And I wish we could give you and everybody else everything they want, but that's just not what we're tasked with doing. And as I think we made really clear at the last meeting, this is a significant change that just the zoning board, that the zoning laws don't support. It's more, we thought you would come back with, or at least I thought you would, I should speak for myself, I thought you would come back with a proposal to enlarge the deck, but not this. And I feel badly doing it. We always do, but I'm going to have to make a motion to deny this request. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, we'll go from bottom to top this time. Judd.
By this design, I don't agree with this. Will not pass for me. Sorry.
Rosie?
Yeah, me too.
Yep. Ken?
Yeah, same.
Charlie?
Same.
Okay, all right, well, we're sorry. We will send out a letter, and I hope you'll be able to come up, if you do come back, with something that's a little more in keeping with what we feel we could pass. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. All right, thank you, everybody. That was relatively quickly, and I thank everybody jumping on, even with their various schedules. Thank you, everybody.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.